Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're a senior emergency medicine doctor, especially in, the high-stakes world of an NHS ED, you'll know that the job just radically transforms as you get more experience. It stops being just about your own clinical speed or, how well you can nail a difficult procedure.
Exactly. We're moving well past just technical mastery here.
Mhm.
The real test, especially for higher specialty trainees and new consultants, is getting to grips with RCEM Specialty Learning Outcome 8, lead the ED shift.
Right?
And this isn't just another clinical competence. I mean, the sources we're looking at define this as the capstone leadership outcome. It's that moment you properly transition from technician to commander.
Okay, let's unpack that because that's a huge idea.
Mm.
The core insight here seems to be this shift from being a really good clinician focused on, say, the single patient right in front of you,
Yeah.
to becoming what the sources call a strategic system operator.
That is the essential shift. Your focus becomes macroscopic. You are suddenly responsible for the entire department's performance. Your mandate covers everything from capacity management, patient flow, and ultimately you are holding the overall risk portfolio for the entire ED.
So if the system
So
fails,
stops with you.
yeah.
Our mission today is pretty clear then. To equip you, the shift leader, with the frameworks, the tools, and the non-technical skills you need to actually fulfill that command mandate. We're going deep into what it takes to keep your department safe and efficient when it's under intense pressure. So, if managing risk and keeping the ED safe is the goal, where does the preparation for that even start? The sources say that before you even glance at the department's grid, it starts with you, optimizing yourself.
That's absolutely right. It's what one source calls meticulous personal performance maintenance. We spend so much time focusing on the system, but, your own physiological state is the bedrock of safety. Understanding the science of shift work is a core professional responsibility. And this isn't just some abstract idea, is it? We're talking about preventing that severe fatigue that we know just shreds your cognitive function, your speed, your accuracy, all of it. So what are the actual evidence-based things you should be doing?
Well, the guidance is pretty prescriptive. You have to integrate shift work science into your planning. So that means rotating your shifts in a clockwise manner, days to evenings to nights. It's just physiologically easier. And you must avoid really long shifts, anything beyond 12 hours or, long stretches of nights without proper recovery. That self-awareness is your first line of defense.
But doesn't that ideal clash, pretty significantly with the reality of a lot of smaller, understaffed NHS rotas? How does the leader balance that biological need with the operational reality?
That's a critical tension, yeah. And the leader's role isn't just managing themselves. It's about advocating for system changes that actually allow for this stuff.
Yeah.
If you can't stick to a perfect clockwise rotation, the leader has to, acknowledge and document that increased risk, flag it upstream, and then use micro-strategies. Things like mandated naps or strategic coffee breaks, just to manage the immediate risk on that shift.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So once your personal performance is sorted, leadership really kicks in before the shift even begins with the huddle. The sources call this a non-negotiable process for getting that shared mental model across the whole team.
And crucially, it needs structure. You can't just have a quick chat. The sources recommend a framework, something like the ESET Safety Huddle script, which breaks the briefing into 3 phases that force you to think proactively.
Let's break those phases down because they really define that cognitive shift we were talking about.
Okay, so first, you're looking back. That's about learning and continuity. The leader has to quickly go over the last shift's critical events, what went well, and crucially, any outstanding clinical or safety tasks. An unstable patient waiting for a ward or an equipment issue that needs checking now.
That sets up continuity. Then you're looking forward. This is the strategic operator part, scanning the horizon.
Precisely. You're proactively looking at your capacity. How many beds are free? Occupancy. What's the acuity mix looking like? And critically, what's our workforce skill mix? Are we heavy on juniors? Are we missing a key registrar? You're basically predicting where the pinch points are going to be in the next couple of hours.
And the final phase is finalize. This is about accountability.
Yeah. You set clear team expectations, you assign specific accountability for the risks you've just identified, like who's keeping an eye on the waiting room, and you state the goal for the shift. And flowing directly from that is safety and communication, especially handover. The sources are crystal clear that communication breakdown during handover is a major, major patient safety risk.
And this is where the senior leader has to enforce some standardization, to use structured handover processes. And SBR is obviously the one that's mentioned as the preferred method for individual patients. It just makes sure that critical information gets across accurately.
And if you link that back to your training, you can see the progression. At intermediate training, you might just have an awareness of the team's workload. But by the end of higher specialty training, full entrustment means you are the one maintaining that situational awareness, optimizing flow, and leading the shift using those escalation policies. It's a whole different level of responsibility.
Okay, so now we get into the AA, the operational heavy lifting. The ED is always, as the sources say, operating at the edge of chaos. And as the shift leader, your entire job is to pull it back from that edge.
And we know why this matters. That chaos, that overcrowding is directly linked to worse patient outcomes. Lower quality of care, increased mortality, you name it. Your primary duty becomes managing flow, not just patients coming in, but getting them through and crucially getting them out.
So how does the leader in this environment where you're constantly being pulled away for a clinical query or a crisis, how do you maintain that high-level awareness?
You rely on your key cognitive tool, the Visual Management Board, or VMB, the ED grid. This isn't just a list of patients. This is the leader's central nervous system for the department.
The sources mentioned 4 principles for it to be effective: simple, big, visible, and changeable. It sounds like it's designed specifically to fight that cognitive load we talked about.
Exactly. It's all about information compression and immediate readability. The most crucial detail is that the status of the department has to be understandable by the entire team, from nurse to consultant, in less than 5 seconds. That's usually done with color coding that instantly tells you if you're safe or if you're at a critical capacity level. It lets you monitor things at a glance.
Okay, so the VMB tells us we're in the red. What are the specific tactical interventions the leader needs to deploy right now?
You need immediate stratification at triage. So that means using streaming and fast-track pathways, a split flow model, to get lower acuity patients seen and discharged efficiently. That frees up your majors for the complex cases. The leader also has to be constantly optimizing the skill mix to match the demand you're seeing.
What I found fascinating, and it's so relevant to the NHS, is the emphasis on using non-medical roles to break down system barriers.
Yes, case management. Integrating care coordinators is incredibly effective. A good shift leader tasks them with sorting out the system-wide barriers to flow, which are often outside the ED itself. So that's aggressive discharge planning, arranging complex community support, anything to reduce that length of stay, especially for frail patients.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room, metrics. For EM doctors in the UK, the focus has shifted, rightly or wrongly, from just the 4-hour target. What's the new key metric that's designed to get that pull from the inpatient wards?
That would be the clinically ready to proceed timestamp, or CRTP. This is a really powerful metric because it tries to shift accountability upstream. Once an ED clinician applies that CRTP timestamp, it says this patient has had all the benefit they can from the ED. The system is then measured on how quickly it responds.
Is CRTP just another target, though, or does it actually change behavior on the wards?
It should. It really should. The goal, once that timestamp is on, is transfer within an hour. It makes the boarding issue quantifiable and visible to hospital management outside the ED. The leader uses this metric to push for compliance from inpatient teams. It turns patient output into a shared hospital problem, not just an ED problem.
Which is key because, as the source notes, crowding is a system-wide problem.
Absolutely. And that's why local EDs have to use their own barometer tools. When that red threshold is hit on the VMB, the shift leader has to trigger the escalation procedures. That should activate a coordinated hospital-wide response, not just more pressure on the ED staff.
We've covered managing the general flow. Let's switch to high acuity scenarios now, like a major trauma or a critical medical patient. Here, the leader's role completely changes. They become the director, not doer.
This is a definitive sign of leadership maturity in our specialty. In a resus, the trauma team leader, the TTL, has to consciously withdraw from doing procedures. Their job is strategic oversight, clear delegation, making the big calls. They should absolutely not be the one holding the BP cuff or trying to get a line in.
And specifically, where should they be and what should their focus be?
Ideally at the foot of the bed. It's not arbitrary. It gives you that visual overview, that spatial distance. Your cognitive capacity is preserved for directing the resus, managing the timeline, allocating resources like blood products, and this is so important, enforcing strict noise control so that communication is crystal clear.
And that focus on communication brings us straight to non-technical skills, or NTS, which the sources highlight as the absolute foundation of patient safety.
NTS covers all those cognitive and social skills, situational awareness, decision-making, teamwork that actually underpin good technical skills. For an ED leader, it often means things like assertiveness, real-time prioritization, and constant vigilance monitoring.
Let's go back to SBR, because it's so critical for those handovers.
Sure.
The source gives a really good clinical example.
It's the gold standard. The leader has to drill the team to use this framework, especially when they're calling for help or handing over to a specialty.
Okay, let's use the example.
Yeah.
An infected exacerbation of COPD. We'll start with situation.
Right. You state the immediate problem. So, we have a 74-year-old male, 2-day history of increasing shortness of breath, currently requiring non-invasive ventilation. Lowest SATs were 69% on arrival.
Concise. Then, background.
The essential context. He has known severe COPD, multiple previous admissions, and he's still a heavy smoker.
Followed by your assessment.
This is your clinical interpretation. Findings are consistent with an infected exacerbation. His CRP is 100, he's febrile, and we're concerned about progressive type 2 respiratory failure.
And finally, the most important part for getting things done, the recommendation.
A clear, actionable request. A ward bed has been requested. We require your urgent review to consider transfer to a higher-level care area. You need to follow up his response to NEBS, review the chest x-ray, and confirm antibiotics are given. No ambiguity, just action.
And in the middle of that recess, that clarity has to rely on closed-loop delegation.
Oh, it's a non-negotiable safety net. When the leader gives a directive, give 10 milligrams of 5-E haloperidol, the receiver has to repeat it back, 10 milligrams of 5-E haloperidol confirmed, and the leader confirmed. It's your defense against error when stress is high.
And moving beyond just offloading tasks, delegation from the shift leader needs to be strategic to keep the whole department flowing.
It does. Strategic delegation is a process. First, you match skill to task. Don't give a difficult airway to a novice. Second, and this is so often missed, you transfer authority, not just the task. You give them the power to make decisions to get it done. And third, you provide context and resources. You explain why it's important.
So what happens when all of that fails? The VMB is flashing red, the system is gridlocked, and you're facing a full-blown surge.
The leader has to immediately activate the hospital's predefined surge plan. That means alerting the hospital's silver and gold command structure, senior clinicians, operational managers. Internally, you start proactive discharges from all wards. That's the check, chase, challenge approach. And you implement a pull policy to cut down boarding time.
And if it's an actual major incident where everything is about to be overwhelmed, the leader needs a way to organize their action plan in all that chaos.
The sources provide a really useful mnemonic for this. Self, space, staff, stuff, specialty, safety, and system.
Right, so that covers everything from your own self-staying calm and managing space to allocating staff and stuff, getting specialties involved, and maintaining safety while you liaise with the wider system. It's a complete operational checklist.
And performing at that level is what SLO 8 mastery is all about. Which brings us, finally, to evidencing this for your ARCP. How do you actually prove you've led the shift effectively?
Through your portfolio. So workplace-based assessments, multi-source feedback that's specifically about leadership and simulation. But the really high-quality evidence, it goes beyond just reflecting on a standard clinical case.
Exactly. The reflection has to focus on systemic and organizational change, so showing your capabilities in demands 5 and 6. A great reflection wouldn't be about how you managed one difficult patient. It would be about how you identified a recurring systemic problem, say inconsistent safeguarding documentation. And then you led a team to implement a more robust, auditable workflow. That optimizes safety for all patients. That's the difference between clinical competence and operational leadership.
This whole deep dive just reinforces that leading the ED shift is about being the operational brain of the department. It means you have to prioritize capacity management, flow, and a rigorous use of non-technical skills over just doing procedures yourself.
The mastery of leadership isn't a one-time thing. It's a continuous requirement. It's defined by your ability to manage system risk and capacity within the constraints of the NHS, not just clinical acuity. It is, quite rightly, the highest level of performance in emergency medicine.
So here's a final thought. If managing departmental flow is your primary operational duty, and we know that visualization is key to cutting down your cognitive load, what single metric or visual cue in your current ED needs to be simplified or standardized tomorrow? What one change could make an immediate improvement on the safety and efficiency of your very next shift? Think about that as you prepare to lead.